All right, let's get right into it. For years, companies have been measuring their carbon footprint, right? But the rules for how they talk about it, well, they're in the middle of a massive change. And at the heart of it all are two huge names, the GHG protocol and the brand new IFRS S2 standard. And that brings us to the big question, the one we're going to unpack today. We've got this new global standard from the International Sustainability Standards Board, the ISSB. So does that mean the old playbook, the one everyone's been using for years, is just out the window? Let's break it down. To really get what's changing, we first have to look at the foundation everything is built on. And for carbon accounting, that foundation has a very specific name. And that name is the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. Seriously, for decades, this has been the universal ruler. If your company wanted to measure its emissions, this was the how-to guide. Everybody trusted it, everybody used it, and it created a common language for carbon. So what does it actually do? Well, it gives us the math. It defines those different buckets for emissions you always hear about. Scope 1 from your own operations, Scope 2 from the energy you buy, and Scope 3 from, well, everything else in your value chain. It's been the gold standard since 2004. Just think of it as the architect's blueprint for counting carbon. But here's the thing. While that blueprint for measurement was solid, investors started asking for a different kind of building. They didn't just want to know the size of the carbon footprint, they wanted to know how climate change could actually mess with a company's bottom line, its strategy, its future. And that is exactly where IFRS S2 comes in. It's not a new way to measure, not at all. Instead, it's a new global standard for disclosure, what you have to report. And it's designed specifically to give financial markets the climate info they're clamoring for. It's really all about connecting climate to capital. So the goal here is all about focus. Trillions of dollars are moving around based on climate risk. And for that to work, investors need data they can trust. IFRS S2 is trying to make that happen, to give them consistent, comparable information so an investor in Tokyo can look at a company in Toronto and understand its climate risks in the exact same way. It's about creating a global baseline for financial-grade sustainability info. Okay, so we've got the trusted foundation for measuring and the new standard for disclosing. How in the world do they connect? Well, this is where it gets really, really important. You can honestly boil it all down to this one simple idea. The GHG protocol is how you measure your emissions. IFRS S2 is what you must tell investors about those emissions and why they matter financially. One's the method, the other's the report card. And this right here is the absolute key takeaway. IFRS S2 doesn't replace the GHG protocol. It does the complete opposite. It officially locks it in. The new standard literally requires companies to use the GHG protocol to do their carbon math. It's not optional. This table just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? The GHG protocol's job is accounting, the nitty-gritty counting of carbon. IFRS S2's job is disclosure, reporting that carbon and its financial impact to investors. And just look at that last row. S2 points directly back to the protocol. They're basically two sides of the same coin now. But, and this is a big but, IFRS S2 doesn't just copy and paste the old rules. It takes that original blueprint and adds a few new floors, maybe a whole new wing to the building. It asks for more information and a lot more transparency than the original GHG protocol ever did. And the biggest expansion by far is right here. Under the old GHG protocol corporate standard reporting those super tricky value chain emissions, Scope 3 was basically optional. While IFRS S2 completely changes the game. Now, disclosing your absolute gross Scope 3 emissions is mandatory. This is a massive shift, forcing companies to look way beyond their own smokestacks to the entire life cycle of their stuff. And it doesn't stop there. Scope 2 demands way more detail. You now have to break down your Scope 1 and 2 emissions to show what's coming from your main company versus, say, a joint venture. For Scope 2, you have to report location-based emissions, which actually shows how dirty the grid you're plugged into is. And for banks and investors, oh yeah, there are special new rules for reporting their financed emissions. That's the carbon footprint of their loans and investments. 15. Get used to this number, because under IFRS S2, companies now have to consider all 15 of the official Scope 3 categories, from the goods you buy all the way to what happens to your products when your customers are done with them. It forces a complete top-to-bottom look at your entire value chain. Now, the people who wrote this standard, they know that's a heavy lift. So they built in a bit of a break. Companies get a 1-year pass on disclosing those super complex Scope 3 emissions right when they start, which gives them some breathing room to get their data in order. So, what does this all add up to in the real world? It means the game has a new set of rules. It's a combination of the trusted math from the old system with the tough transparency demands of the new one. So here's your new playbook in just 3 steps. First, you measure. You use the same trusted GHG protocol you always have. Second, you disclose. You report that information using the much more detailed investor-focused IFRS S2 framework. And third, you connect it all. You have to make sure your sustainability report and your financial report are telling one single cohesive story. So the bottom line is this, that GHG protocol hasn't been replaced, not even close. Its role has been cemented. It's now officially a core part of the financial reporting landscape, elevated and formalized to meet the demands of global investors. And that leaves us with one last, really critical question. These new standards make it crystal clear that just counting your carbon isn't enough anymore. The real challenge, the real test, is communicating what those numbers actually mean for your business strategy, for your risks, and for your future. That is the new frontier.